Hey guys, we have a few updates from Iceland that are very interesting. The scientists kind of have different opinions again about what could happen next. You know, we're waiting for the next event. Then there's news from Grindavik and the home buyout event. But then there's also something that is very interesting in my opinion. A theory about the system that we're dealing with here, that it could change completely and that something else could happen that we're not expecting right now. So let's get into this. Let's have a look first at the earthquake situation, because there is something that has changed that has kind of driven some experts at the Icelandic Meteorological Office to believe this could be the earthquake swarm that comes before the next eruption. So imminent, right? But before we do that, guys, I hope you sit down, have a coffee with me so that we can look at things a little bit more relaxed. I definitely need that coffee. So earthquakes here, latest situation, late May 15th. So the seismic activity has increased at the magma corridor in the Sutnuka crater series this evening Icelandic time. So the Sutnuka crater series, for those of you who don't know, this is the area where we have seen the action going on, where there was the last eruption that has started on March 16th and ended on May 9th. This is basically this crater row where we most of the times, except January, there was really at the doorstep of Grindavik, but there along that we have seen the eruptions. Some were further south in the Hagafell area, but mostly, basically, if you go from the Swartsengi area where the Blue Lagoon and the power plant is, draw a line, that's where we have that eruption site. So seismic activity has increased. They noticed that. So, you know, when magma's on the way and it's grinding its way to the eruption site, you see the earthquakes. So it seems to be over now with that earthquake swarm. It's a little bit more quiet, but the Icelandic MET Office says they're monitoring this very, very closely to see whether this activity will catch up again and then maybe lead to an eruption, because that's what everyone's waiting for. Like days ago, the theory was within the next 24 hours. I mean, you have to look at this. That magma chamber that is underneath the Blue Lagoon and Swartsengi, we're over 16 million cubic meters right now. The only fill amount where it was higher was before the December eruption. There it had about 20 million cubic meters. And for all the other events, look at that graph here. It had way less amount of magma in it. And in case you don't know, the squares, that's a magma intrusion. So magma was shooting out from the magma chamber, but wasn't strong enough to make its way to the surface to cause an eruption, to flow out as lava. In the other events with the star, yes, eruption. And then we see the red graph. That's the curve is less steep than the other ones, because what was new, this graph was basically building while we already had an eruption going. So despite the fact that lava was flowing out to basically relieve pressure from the system, the magma chamber was still filling up gradually, continuously. Of course, with a little less force than in the other events. But the red line, we're quite far. This is an older graph that's a few days old. So we're that red dot at the end, we're way higher now. Between 6 and 7 p.m. tonight, Icelandic time, that's when we saw these swarm of tremors, and they were all like under 1 in size, magnitude 1 underneath that, which is normal for these seismic swarms if magma's on the way. So a natural hazard expert at the Meteorological Office says in an interview that it's too early to say whether this increased small earthquake activity is a prediction that we will see the next magma eruption. Yeah, of course, because usually it's like earthquake swarm and then shortly after, right, something's happening and nothing has happened, right? So I guess, nope, that was not it yet. So they're monitoring these earthquakes together with the civil defense so that they can sound the alarm. But we all know, and all institutions have predicted this, we will probably have no warning time or little warning, because there's so many tunnels already. There's so many areas where magma can flow, where it has a way of least resistance, so that it doesn't have to have much force to grind its way to a potential new eruption site if it erupts where it has erupted before. We just heard yesterday it could completely change. It could do something different, because right now it is behaving differently than it has before. So the geologists are saying another eruption is expected any moment. It seems there is a little bit of a break now with the seismic activity, has stopped a little bit. They say we have to patrol the situation during the night. And here, this is the latest updates, earthquakes, where you can see on the Reykjanes Peninsula, the red dots are the most recent ones. You also see it here in the graph with the lines and the dots, and there you can see, so red is within the last 4 hours. So it's pretty constant if you look at how it has behaved over the last few days. So it's not really that we could see, oh, now there's a swarm that's that thick, that stands out so significantly that we could say, now it's coming, right? Well, I need to get a sip of coffee before we talk about the next issue, because here we go again. They're saying something different. The Met Office says, well, yeah, happen any minute. And there we have a professor of volcanology from the University of Iceland. So we know this with Thorvaldur Thorvaldsson, who works for the University of Iceland. He disagrees with the Met Office quite often. And I don't think this is a bad thing. I think it's important to have a discussion, because what they all know is that they don't know, right? The science has not progressed very far. But I'll release a video later today about what's going on in Italy at the Campi Flegrei supervolcano. And there the scientists have done something amazing to really map out what's going on underneath with these magma chambers. And when I saw this science paper, I was wondering, why don't we have anything like this yet for the area here in Iceland? So that video about Campi Flegrei will come out after this one, maybe tomorrow, maybe in a few hours. It depends on my fix here. It's not that much left, guys, so I don't really know if I'll have enough energy to do it. We will see, but let's continue with this video first. So Ármann Höskuldsson, professor of volcanology at the University of Iceland, he says everything's calm at the moment. Yeah, I guess everyone can agree with him on that, can't we? I guess the Lagoonies are very happy about that. If you have seen my last video, there's a few sequences of the last emergency evacuations, and some Lagoonies really, they're in the pool and they're like laughing when the sky turns red while they're swimming in there. They're not aware. It's watch it. It's the last video. It's in the end screen as well. It's interesting to see people's reaction to danger. So he says it's calm at the moment, but preparations are being made for the next eruption, whenever it will be. And here we come, whenever it will be. So now here comes his theory. So yes, he knows this last eruption has been going on so much longer than the other ones. It started on March 16, it ended on May 9th. So while the Icelandic MET Office says there is an increased probability of another magma intrusion or another eruption, the magma accumulation is continuing under Swartsengi at the same rate as before. It's not showing signs of slowing down. Slowing down is a sign that the magma chamber has reached the maximum capacity. If you blow up a balloon, if the balloon is stretched out to the max, the moment before it bursts, it's not growing any further, right? You can't put more air in it. So that's what's everyone scratches their heads. Wow, how much more space is in there? Yeah, we know the magma flows slower than before. That we can see on the graph, and that hasn't changed since the eruption stopped. You would expect, okay, if we have two flows, one in the magma chamber and one to the eruption site, if the eruption site stops with the flow, we would expect that curve to go steeper, back to how steep the other curves were before the previous eruptions. Look at the other curves, the orange, the green, right? No, it's not doing that. It's going gradually. So there were theories, well, was that eruption that just ended, was that fed by another magma chamber? It's weird, right? They don't know. So Arman says, and that's now it gets interesting. While the land rise underneath the Blue Lagoon and the Swartsengi area continues, magma is coming to the upper layers of the Earth's crust. And he says, yeah, it's just a question of when there will be enough magma to come to the surface. But he thinks it could still take a few months or weeks. And that's new, right? Everyone's thinking, yeah, it has to happen immediately, right? But the system is like sitting there like, yeah, let's have another coffee. Let's make them wait. Let's make them speculate. I'll keep gradually rising. I keep the uncertainty growing. And yeah, he says, of course, there he agrees with everyone. Before we will see the next eruption, there will be a swarm of earthquakes again. But he says he can't read anything from the data that he got from the Met Office that this could be the case. So not like the Met Office said, well, the last swarm could be it. He doesn't think so. And he says what he can read from the data is that the magma is moving more slowly than it did before. So in previous eruptions and intrusions, we had about 8 to 13 million cubic meters in the magma chamber underneath Swartsengi between the events. So whenever that area was reached, we usually did see the next event, intrusion or eruption, but not this time. We have exceeded that upper limit of 13 million cubic meters quite a while ago. And he says the volume of magma has become much higher now than before the last eruptions. And what he says, and here, listen to this, it's flowing a little slower than in the other land rises that we had before. So as it's filling more gradually, that is his theory. The magma chamber expands more slowly and therefore could take in more volume. So as it's stretched out a little more, if you have a rubber band and you stretch it very fast, you'll reach your point of maximum elasticity quite quickly. But if you then gradually try a little more, some of the fibers in there, they break and they release while it still holds together. Where is it? While it still holds together, but you're able to do a little more and a little more, whereas if you're full force, right? So he thinks that is happening, so that while we have the main area of that magma chamber, by like expanding and then eruption subsiding, expanding, subsiding, expanding, subsiding, that layer around that magma chamber, this crust, this area of rocks and soil gets more brittle and could allow magma to have like little areas, little seams to start leaking in there as well out of the main area, right? As if we had a balloon and we could put in teeny tiny holes in there, not big enough so that this whole thing could let the air out, but that a little bit could leak out while it's still filling. And that could be the case. And that's his theory. And I think this is a good theory. It makes absolute logical sense to me. Let me know what you think, guys. Let's discuss this in the comments. So there's another conclusion that he draws from this. And that's an interesting one, especially for Grindavik. He says definitely what we noted is there was a change in the last eruption. It lasted longer than the other eruptions, which is for him the evidence that there is some change going on in this system. Definitely. I mean, we still don't know why we had that event, magma chamber filling up and eruption at the same time. So he was then asked, and that's an interesting question, do you think the next eruption will be the last event in this area, in this Sutnuka crater series? And he says, possibly this will be the last eruption in this area, and it will start to move westwards towards Antwerp, so west of Grindavik. And he says, I hope that it will do that it will go to Antwerp. Why is he saying that? He thinks it's more convenient to get the lava up there. It's flatter and there's less going on there than previously. And maybe, I guess they have flow models. Maybe they will release new flow models. It's not flowing back into town the way the land is laid. There, it can make, but then it could flow into the sea. There's another road there. There's a golf course. So, and there's existing fissures and cracks as well. But maybe this could be some relief for Grindavik. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So I think it's not over yet. I think this volcanic system is playing with us and will keep us busy for quite a while. But since we're speaking about Grindavik, what has happened? It's grinding slowly with the purchase of the home so that the residents are able to buy somewhere else and leave Grindavik. The company that was founded last year for that purpose, it's grinding slowly. They said they would have everything done by early April. Well, now it's mid-May and it's still grinding. People were upset about this. So now they're saying they have worked through these applications and they have approved the purchase of 660 properties. And that's quite a lot because I think they had a little over 700 applications coming in. The purchase price altogether will be 52 billion Icelandic kronas. We will have to see about that because originally when they were talking about the buyout, the residents of Grindavik thought that the amount would be something over 90 billion. So that is substantially less. So I wonder if there is any trouble ahead on the horizon. But that real estate company that was founded for that purchase, Thorkatla, will take over the first properties in Grindavik, or has taken over today. It's nighttime in Grindavik, so it's already over. And they want to rent them out. Big question mark. What? Maybe for the lagoonies, have a relaxing spa day on top of the magma chamber, and then spend a nice night in Grindavik waiting for some lava to come your way, or maybe, you know, sleepwalk at night and fall into a crack. I'm just kidding, guys, but it is a little, I don't know, maybe it's a rental if some residents want to be paid out for the damages and they decide to stay there. We will have to see. So they're saying the rental price of these residential premises will amount to 25% of the normal rent that would be the market price for rent. They compare it to the area of Sudorns for the rest of the year. Rent will be around 625 Icelandic kronas per square meter for this year. So it will be possible to rent a 100 square meter house in Grindavik for 62,500 Icelandic kronas a month. I'll put the dollar amount here. Who's going to rent? I have to ask again. That's interesting. So yeah, so maybe the property owners can rent back. I mean, if the system moves west to Antwerp now, who knows? Does this make sense? So, or will they all be Airbnb, or I don't know, guys, you know me. It's hard for me to not say anything when I hear something like this. But no, let's be serious. What is already happening? They're already renting out some of these homes to the previous owners. So the owners want to stay in their homes, but want the financial risk gone. And that's what they're saying. Right now, they'll only be rent it out to the previous owners should they wish so, not to somebody else. But as time goes on, they say renting out to other people will be considered. So they still want to make money with these properties. That's how it looks. And they're saying in cases where the sellers have not requested to have priority rights on this property. And then they're saying in the long term, market rent will be considered when renting real estate to previous owners. Okay, so then they have to pay the full market price. But the situation in the town will be taken into account at any given time. Not right now, obviously. So it seems they're still hoping that everything could be back to normal in Grindavik and that the town could be kept alive. The rental price will take into account the property's fire damage assessment. The fire insurance, that's where this natural hazard stuff is related to. And then they're saying the monthly rent is based on 0.5% of the fire damage assessment per square meter. So this means that for a house where the fire compensation assessment per square meter is 500,000 Icelandic kronas, the rent before taking into account the conditions in Grindavik will be 2,500 Icelandic kronas per square meter. That's what the announcement says. Today, first transactions should have happened, and then they want to do special settlements meetings that where they will be representatives of the company and the sellers so that they can review the condition of the properties, and that they want to make a special settlement report. So about 660 properties. It's about 85% of all the applications that have come in. 660 have been approved, but only 513 people have received a purchase contract so far. So that's only 66% of all applicants. So their announcement says there are 471 registered purchase agreement, and the company has paid 22.2 billion in purchase agreement payments and has taken over loans from 16 credit institutions in the amount of 11.4 billion Icelandic kronas. Volcano, the real estate company, has responded to the criticism of the sellers that the processing of their cases took so long. And they're saying, well, there are usually deviations that have caused it, that it has not been possible to complete those cases in a simple way. In some cases, minor issues such as expired EIDs of sellers have delayed the matters. Really bad. Especially in Europe, if your ID is expired, it's all in the system. Don't let me get into this. Bureaucratic blah blah, as I call it. And then they keep going. They say, more often, however, it is a case of more complicated processing issues, such as supporting guarantee letters from private parties and lenders that are outside the framework agreement between the lenders and the Volcano company. It has also come to light that a lien still rests on the property due to paid up loans that have been foreclosed on the property and blah blah blah. But you know what? I don't think this has been the case in many properties. So it's excuses. They have been slow. They haven't been doing a good job. Just admit it, right? We screwed up, guys. Sorry for that. But it seems we're getting ready now. That would be the right answer to me. I'll be back with more updates soon, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave it a like. It helps my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'd love to see you more often and have a little coffee with you. To my regular viewers, hey Teddy, I hope you're up and running. Have a lot of coffee, right? Don't forget to share my video. Thanks, guys. I see you very soon. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.